What's up, my Prosperos? Welcome to Presidential Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Kanae Corder, National Certified Counselor, and I just want to tell you that this month is going to be different. Here's why. April was both Stress Awareness and Financial Awareness Month, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So much has changed over here at Presidential Lifestyle, including the Presidential Experience Podcast. So, I want to tell you what we're going to do for the month of May. For the month of May, as you can see, we're already doing something different. You don't usually get an episode on a Monday. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I really want to get out a lot about mental health, but I don't want to do it in just 4 episodes. So I'm breaking this up into daily episodes that are going to last about 10 or 15 minutes tops. And no matter what I'm talking about, I'm going to stop and I'll just continue it the next day. It's not going to be about severe diagnoses like schizophrenia, even bipolar. We're probably going to talk about trauma, of course, because it's me, but we won't go into the deep. We won't even go into the personality disorders heavily. We'll touch on them, but we're not going deep. What we're talking about this month is general mental health. And really what we're talking about is emotional health because we're not talking about illness, we're talking about health. Keep that in mind. And yes, the month is called Mental Health Awareness Month, not Mental Illness Awareness Month. And many of the people that I see are not severe and they're not chronic. I did work in a hospital for a while and I saw it there, but what I noticed is that some of the people who come into the hospital, they were just so stressed that it caused a psychotic break. But we'll talk about all of that this month. We're not going to go deep today. Today, I want to talk to you specifically about why we are so stressed and what's affecting our mental health and why. So, I just want to give you an overview of what we're going to talk about this month. So, we're definitely going to talk about COVID-19, health. We're going to talk about money, how that stresses us out, how marriage stresses us out. We're going to talk about teenagers and how they stress parents out, but also how parents stress teenagers out. And then we're going to talk about some of the stress that teenagers have, period, just what it is like being a teenager in this day and age and how that can be stressful for you. We're going to talk about how finding purpose can affect your mental health, religion, school, whether you're in high school or college, or maybe you decided to go back to school after many years and how that can affect your mental health and emotional health. We're going to talk about time management. We'll talk about programming, my favorite. So I can't guarantee it's going to come that far down in the list. I'll probably end up talking about that pretty early. We'll be talking about internal versus external focus. Some people call it the locus of control. And is it internal, external? Is it you or is it other people that control your emotional stability, your mental stability? And we'll talk some about that. We'll talk about freedom versus responsibility because this is sort of like an existential crisis that we're all going through. You can go through an existential crisis at any age. It doesn't have to be when you're an adult. You can do it as a teenager. You can do it as a young adult. You can do it as an elderly person. We'll talk about boundaries. Ooh, yes, I can't wait to talk about that. And then here's something that we don't talk about here on this podcast often, but I know that it is a big stressor and it can highly affect your mental health, and that is getting pregnant or not getting pregnant. And also failing as a parent, feeling like you're a failure as a parent. I said we would talk about trauma for sure, and I'm talking about big trauma and traumatic experiences. So a car accident in it of itself may be a traumatic experience. Somebody you being responsible for somebody dying is complete trauma and having to release that. So I want to make sure we make those distinctions that Traumatic experiences is what your brain decides is traumatic. And when I go through that, I'll tell you some stuff that has happened to me that most people will just be like, what? Why is that traumatic? I don't know. It's just my brain coded it that way. And I'm sure you have some stories too. But then there's the traumas, like your house burned down. I remember when I was 13 years old and a girl in our class died in a fire. Her family, all her family got out, but she didn't. And so that was traumatic for her family. That was traumatic for us, not seeing her the next day going to school. So we'll talk about that. We're definitely going to talk about suicide. We will be talking about suicide for sure, especially when we start talking about teenagers. But believe it or not, white males, like that 40 to 50 age, they're rising in the suicide rates. And that started happening around 2008 that they noticed that trend. But I imagine that that's going to happen again because we are going through a financial crisis. So yeah, so with suicide, we'll definitely be talking about that. I wanted to give you that overview, but now today, just a little bit, today's episode might be a little bit longer than 10 minutes. I want to give you like a call to action, like something you can take forward with you because if we if we're honest with ourselves and each other, our mental health is suffering. Our emotional health is suffering, and we probably don't know why. And oh, I forgot to say we were going to talk about being dissatisfied and disconnected. And of course, we're going to talk about hypnotherapy. This is your field work. I want you to ask yourself, what is affecting my mental health? Like, why am I so stressed? Why are my emotions so raw? What is affecting you? Like, just ask yourself that question. And it could be your past, which a lot of times it is. And it could be your immediate past, like maybe your marriage is suffering and that affects all the other areas of your life. It could be your, younger years, or it could have been when you were a kid, like really small kid. I'm going to break down the brain for you and the way that the brain works through some of the things that we experience. And then after that, you'll be probably be able to see and answer this question that I'm asking you today even better. But what's affecting your mental health? Ask yourself that question. Just write it down. Write down all the things that you think are affecting your mental health right now, or that you feel or are affecting your mental health, or that you can see are affecting your mental health. The reason why I use those three different words is because we all use different words. And I'm going to also talk to you about that. I call it the head, heart, and the gut. And so the reason why I said think, because some people are thinking about this, some people are feeling this, and some people are visualizing or seeing this. And so depending upon what type of person you are, it's going to be different language used. And I want to make sure I talk to all of you because I don't want to miss anybody or leave anybody out. But if I have, and if I didn't name something that you want to talk about, then I'm going to ask you to send me an email at podcast@presidentiallifestyle.com. Go ahead and send me an email and say, hey, Kanae, you didn't mention this. Can you talk about this? If there is a specific question you have, go ahead, send me that email at podcast@presidentiallifestyle.com. If you have a story you want to tell, you can do that as well. Go ahead and send a message to podcast@presidentiallifestyle.com. Now, what I suggest is if you have like that voice record on your phone, then record like a minute or two of the story you want to tell and attach it to that email. If it's 10 minutes, I probably am not going to listen to it. I'm just being honest with you. Or if I do, it'll be later because if I'm doing an episode every day, you can imagine the the time and effort it's going to take to do this. And I'm not promising every single day, but I'm doing as many as I can. And it maybe we end up with 20 episodes this month, but you remember they're short and they're going to touch on just one subject and go deep. Today, I wanted to give you all of the things that we're going to talk about, and I wanted to give you one action item, which is answer the question, what is affecting your mental health? What has gotten you so stressed? Oh, I forgot. We're going to talk about sleep too. Yes. Phew, can't forget that. You know, that's my favorite subject. Of course, we're going to talk about nutrition because that could be affecting your mental health. So I want you to write down all the things that you feel like are affecting your mental health. I will do this for you today. So this COVID-19 crisis is affecting my mental health in the sense that it's affected my business. And I have to do a lot of paperwork lately. And a lot of paperwork is not fun for me. And it's a bit stressful and it doesn't make me feel like I'm accomplished anything. Even though, you'll complete the paperwork, I still don't feel like I accomplished anything. So I don't like that. And it affects me heavily. The other thing that affects my mental health right now is that my daughter is pretty worried about COVID-19. My mom, my dad, like a lot of the people around me are very worried about it. And I am concerned, but not worried. And but I get concerned about them because they are so worried. So one of my things is that I feel other people's pain. So when my people that I love are in pain, I feel that. And that affects my mental health. One of the other things that is affecting my mental health right now is my team. Like we are a little bit scattered, like everybody's kind of like doing their own thing and we're not as tight and succinct as we usually are. And so that affects me because I'm like, okay, what does this mean and where are we going? And do I bring us back together? Do I let us, linger a little bit? Because maybe that's what we need right now. So that weighs heavy on me. Um, and that's pretty much it. I love to travel and I'm not getting to travel. And that's an outlet for me. That being in an airport, that motion, that flying, a lot of times I get a lot done on an airplane, especially when I'm flying from one coast to the other. If I'm flying from, Vegas to Atlanta, or New York to California, whatever, that's a long flight. And so I can get a lot done in that time. And sometimes what I get done is watching movies. I catch up on movies. So that is affecting my mental health. But I've been sitting on the couch a lot more than I usually do, and I don't like that. I don't like it at all. I don't need a lot of couch time, although some people do. But when I'm in a relationship, I do have more couch time in my life because usually I'm with someone who does like a lot of couch time because, that's how life is. Opposites can attract. So let's see. Is there anything else? I think that's all. If it's not, I'll report back tomorrow because I want to wrap this up today because I went a little longer. Okay, so the last thing I want to add is today when I ask you what is affecting your mental health, that's all I want you to answer today. But in the future, I'm going to be asking you, what are you going to start, stop, and continue? I'm going to talk to you about start, stop, and continue. Remember that? Yes, we'll go back to that. So tomorrow, we're going to talk about COVID-19 a little bit. Um, yeah, we'll be talking about that a little bit tomorrow. So I will see you then. In the meantime, I Pros began to make a record and see what is affecting your mental health so that we can talk about it. Send me an email at podcast@presidentiallifestyle.com. So I know you hear me. If you want to say more, if you want to be involved, if you have questions, go ahead and send that email. And I will talk to you sooner than later. Oh, I should mention that there's no intro, no outro, no disclaimers, none of that. And remember, everything we talk about here, it is not advice. It is just me sharing my experience with you and you interacting with me however you would like to. Okay? Well, I will see you sooner.